to freezing.
All right, thanks, Mike. The Surgeon General already has warning labels on cigarettes, and now he's determined social media is dangerous to young teenagers.
He says kids under the age of 16 should never be allowed to be on these sites. Social media legal expert Stanley Gripe joins us live for his expert opinion. Good morning. Welcome to Houston's Morning Show.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we were just checking out the typical age for most of these sites. It seems like it's 13 in most cases. Do you feel like that is too young for these kids to be online?
Yes, okay. Yes, 13 is too young, but practically speaking, as a parent, it's almost impossible to keep your kids off of these sites at that age.
Yeah, because even if you ban them from it, their friends have TikTok, or they find workarounds, right? We know that there is this growing body of research showing that it is dangerous for kids and young teenagers. What specifically, Stanley, is going on these sites that makes it dangerous?
Okay, you got to kind of think about this as social media is almost like the coolest kid in town. Everyone likes them. Everyone's hanging out with them. Okay, back in the 80s and 90s, if your kid had a friend who was trying to get him to eat Tide Pods, you would just tell him, quit hanging out with that kid. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not practical today. Social media is everywhere, and even if you're trying to keep your kid off of, other kids are on it. So really what you've got your strategy for dealing with this is effectively making your kid understand that his confidence, sense of self-worth, this stuff starts at home. Okay, social media is going to be out there. There's going to be bullying. There's going to be negative effects. You got to make sure you talk to your kids about this stuff at home, because it's almost impossible to keep them off of it.
Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with this, because we have at least one school district in Seattle actually suing these companies because they're profiting off of kids' mental health. Lawmakers also taking notice, going after TikTok. How hard of a fight is this to win?
Well, what you got to look at, and the basis of a lot of these lawsuits is this, okay? When you're on TikTok or social media, it doesn't just feed you the fire hose of information. There's an algorithm that decides what information you see, okay? A common thing you hear from kids is TikTok knew I was blank before I did, okay? TikTok knew I was gay before I did. TikTok knew I was anorexic before I did. Okay, well, how does that happen? TikTok takes the stuff that kids look at and the amount of time they spend looking at that, factors that into what it continues to feed them. Problem with that is sometimes kids spend time looking at stuff that disturbs them, doesn't necessarily make them happy. And if they spend time looking at stuff that disturbs them, the algorithm is going to feed them more stuff that continues to disturb them and push them in a negative direction.
That is so disturbing. So, Stanley, what if your young teens are already on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok? There's no going back, right? You've already opened up that can of worms. What can parents do to set these limits and protections?
Okay, number one, okay, as a parent, you lose credibility if you try to pretend to be the social media expert. You are not. Your kid is a social media expert. You are the life expert, okay? You can talk about how these things may impact your life, but you can't try to convince them that you know more about social media than they do. You need to make sure you try to set limits, but even then, limits are hard to enforce. It's making sure your kids realize that this has a huge impact on their life, and that a lot of what they're doing out there is indelible, meaning it can't, it's going to be out there forever. I can tell you, when I hire, we go look at people's social media profiles, and there may be things they put out there 10 years ago, but it impacts our hiring decisions.
Okay, an important conversation for parents to remind their kids of that very often, that it can catch up with them. I think they feel like they could erase it, and not realizing it can often stay out there forever. Thank you for taking time to talk to us today, Stanley. Important info for us all to take time and consider.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So much screen-to-screen communication these days, and it really is worrisome. Up next,